There's nothing like discussing gray goo over a dinner that gets the romantic juices flowing. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood already did it. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. The eighth episode of Silo Season 3 is here. It is called The Grey Goo. Despite the very goofy title, this episode does do a lot of things. We finally get the reveal of Orla Kent's killer and murder and how that all came about. We sort of get the explanation of why these silos were built in the first place. This is a very dense episode. There's a lot that happens, and it kind of takes place in sort of three locations, two timelines. We got the Daniel and Helen past, if you will. Then we have the present in 18 and the present also in 17. So there's a lot that's happening in this particular episode. I'm going to start with the Daniel and Helen piece because I think the 17 and 18 stuff sort of kind of goes back and forth and is needed for each other to tell the story. So we pick up with the Daniel and Helen piece where they are being brought to a site in Atlanta. They're basically being wooed and pursued to be a part of this new team that is all about these silos and putting these silos into place, into position. They're getting up and close with the drills. You can see the whole silo, the initial sort of skeletal form of the silo being put in place. It's all happening. And then this dinner, we sort of get into the nuts and the bolts of to why this is happening. Short answer, because a rich man got money and wants to do some rich things richly. Like paranoia has made people with money do some wild things, and that's kind of how we end up in the world that we are in. But long form, they have this dinner, and they learn that there are about 50 silos that are being petitioned to build, with some costly behaviors to them. It's going to take them, but like money is no option to Stinson. Like he is just willing to throw money every which way. He doesn't care how much it costs. It's his money, and he wants to do what he wants to do with it. The plan is for these to be able to sort of repopulate the world after a big catastrophic event happens. It could be nuclear war, it could be a viral pandemic, it could be whatever, et cetera, et cetera. But what he's doing it for is because he's very afraid of nanotechnology, like some Terminator 2 type stuff. He's afraid that this gray goo, these nanos are going to sort of come together and have an overall destruction of the world. And so he is building this world because somewhere in his brain, he has got it set that, oh crap, these nanos are going to take over everything and kill us all. And so he is doing all of this, spending all of this money, has gotten people sort of into this cabal, if you will, to say, hey, I'm in agreement with you. Let's go ahead and make sure that we secure this area, secure this place, and make sure that we have a place that we can sort of be the shelter and the recreation of Earth, of our world, once all of this stuff sort of wipes us out. Now, where Helen and Daniel have a bit of a pushback is, hey, is something imminent? Like, is nanotechnology about to like really create humans and completely take over our world? Like, what? Why is it that you're acting and treating us as if this is the end of the world? Like, you put us through pure hell to get to this point. Why? Because none of this seems like this is happening tomorrow. Instance is very much like, well, why would you wait until death is at your doorstep to make a decision? You need to act fast. You need to prepare for this for the future so that when it comes. And we did all those things to you to sort of give you the idea of what if it was there? What if we had no other choice? What if death was imminent? Would you be able to make that move? Would you be ready to easily make that change? They are also going through these secret measures to sort of hide everything, to not alert their enemies of what it is that they are building here in Atlanta. They don't want to either A, cause them to come and destroy all of this, or B, cause them to not push as hard immediately to put this nanotechnology or whatever the threat is out, so that they also then lessen their field, and so it doesn't feel like they have to rush as much. It's like, no, 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 we're going to go ahead and push this through. They have tricked their brains to come up with this, that everything has to happen now, has to happen now. Let's not think any of this stuff through. Let's just go, 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 go. I do have a bit of a question here. I feel like on a map, especially if you have satellites looking in on this, or you have planes going over this area in the way that there's just big holes being put in the ground, someone would see this. Like, there's not like you'd have a magician or Doctor Strange somewhere that's like making everybody like not be able to see what's happening in this or put a hex over this world where you can't see this. How are they hiding this? Like, this seems to be pretty out in the open. Like, I that part is having a hard time for my brain to sort of understand how they're hiding this from others, because it feels like it should show up on any. The idea of people not knowing it's happening is one thing, but the idea of people not seeing big holes being put in the ground by these big drills doesn't. It's hard for me to wrap my head around that. But that being said, their plan is like, hey, by the time that somebody actually does find this stuff out, by the time they are get wind of what's happening here, they'll just blame it on Stinson being crazy. Stinson's folly. He created all these things. He spent all this money for all this stuff, but just a man with too much money, not that big of a deal. And then hopefully the plan is to never actually have to use the silos. We know that there something does occur where they do get used. I think the frightening part of all this to me is that they are not they, because Daniel and Helen's not really a part of this, but they're playing fast and loose with putting lives into these silos with the idea that they're making it better, doing something for the betterment of people, and not really thinking about the consequences or what how this life of living is, because they don't have to live through it. They don't have to see it. And so us seeing this and then going back and forth through the episode and seeing what's happening in 17 and 18, it's a very different version of life and how somebody with money is making the choices for people way down the line that they don't really have a say. They have to kind of run through this punishment that these people who were doing puppet strings back in the day made. It might be better just to be dead as opposed to have to go through the hell that these people are having to go through. They didn't get that choice. Charlotte asks, like, well, what was up with my mission? And they tell her that, well, your mission was to we found a secret nano base and we sent you up there to sort of stop that base. And then we learned that she was more of just cannon fodder to go up there, while they actually already had a nuclear weapon going to that base via another tunnel that was built based on some information that Daniel had gotten. And that's how they were able to take that out. And so she didn't really they didn't really be up there. They were up there just to kind of be a decoy while the actual thing was happening. Helen sort of challenges on them on that and makes some aggressive comments, which sets Charlotte off a little bit. So she goes off to kind of need to calm down and sort of de-stress. Victor goes with her. Victor tells Daniel in that moment, like, hey, you need to find something that's going to remind her of your parents, because right now she's not in a safe space, and we need to kind of get a memory to sort of get her back and peeling back more of those onions to get more of her memory from the past back. So after that little bit of a break, when Charlotte runs off, Helen follows behind. Victor kind of goes to deal with her. They resume dinner. And in the resuming of the dinner, Helen wants to get under the hood of the money of this. Like, how much is all of this cost? Because we're building a lot of stuff. We're building what would seem like be sustainable ecosystems multiple times for multiple humans to live in at a time. Like, what is the dollar amount on this and who's paying for it? And Simpson pretty much just runs down the numbers of like, hey, there's going to be 5,000 employees that are making about 200,000 a year, 100 in each of the silos. They're all going to be doing this day in and day out for years and years to come. Costs a couple of $1 trillion. Nothing you ever have to worry about, because we're one, creating sanctuary for people, but also using them to sort of be the beta testing for this new environment that we're putting in. And I can fund this for years because, baby, I got money. That is how he is operating. I got money to blow. Don't you worry your pretty head about how much money that I'm spending. I am spending it, and it's my money. I can do whatever the hell I want to. And Helen pushes back. Well, if you have the capabilities of doing this for something that is not at all imminent, could you maybe spend your money on stuff that is imminent, like Alzheimer's cure or cancer cure, or like, hey, stopping homelessness? Like, there are other things that are much more useful for your money than what it is that you're doing. And Stinson pushes back, like, look, those are all noble causes. Those are all nice things to do, and kind of, but that ain't what I want to do. It's my money. I can do whatever the hell I want to do. And he's very adamant, like, no, my crazy brain wants to do this. All those other things aren't my goal, aren't my focus. I'm not concerned with those. So I'm not going to spend my money that I earned to do so. Like, I'm not asking taxpayers for money. I'm not asking you for money. I'm not asking anyone else for money. It's my money. I can do what the hell I want to do with it. And that's how he's operating. So it's one so crazy billionaire that's kind of a trillionaire that's sort of responsible for putting all these lives at risk. It's clearly a big man not sort of thinking about the mental aspects of what all of this does for people as we sort of go along. So Helen and Daniel ask, like, what the hell are we being brought here for? Like, what's our purpose here? And they're told that their goal is to sort of join this crew. Like, we want you to join this team. They want Helen for the new stuff. The job at the Times is true and honest. We want you to go work at the Atlanta branch of the Times. And when we are ready to release the story to the world, we want you to be the one to have it. It's a big story, but they also are going to want her to do it the way that they want it. They want the news released in the way that they want it to be released, which we know is not going to do well for Helen. So Helen pretty much tells them to kick rocks. Like, nah, that ain't going. I'm not going to do that. That is not what I want to do. So no, I'm going to leave. They ask Charlotte, like, Charlotte, we need somebody who can fly drones, who can fly planes. And Charlotte is like, will I get to keep doing this memory stuff with Victor? Will I still be able to get my memory back? And they're like, yeah, that's part of it. So she's all in. She's like, yep, I want to keep doing that. So then they ask Daniel, but before they can kind of do that, Helen's like, well, look, deuces, y'all keep figuring out who want to stick around and play in this billionaires, trillionaires, crazy brain world or with mole people, but I'm out. And they give her a helicopter to take off and leave. And then Daniel says, like, well, can I, before I make a decision, can I talk to Charlotte? Because he wants to at least see if Charlotte in this world will get her memory back and be okay. So he does what Victor asked and brings the memory, I think it's a clover to sort of trigger the memory that they have of their past. It works. She remembers, and that gives Daniel enough peace to be like, okay, she's going to be fine here. I can come back and visit her, but she's going to be fine here. Let me go do what I want to do with Helen, and my sister's okay. And so he gets on the helicopter too. He's like, hey, scoot over. And she's like, are you coming to talk me out of it? And he's like, no, I'd rather turn into gray goo with you than to die here with these crazy people. Which prompts her to show her affection and kiss Daniel on the mouth. And that's how sort of the past sequence ends. It's you get a lot of stuff in there. You just see a man with tons of just disposable money that he can just like wipe his butt with, making the decisions for all of these people that we then watch on the 18 and 17 silo stuff. They're just like, oh, wow, that is someone playing fast and loose with so many human lives who just doesn't understand the ramifications of what he could do. And that money could be used in much, much better ways. So then we pick up with silo 17 and 18. And so this episode begins where the last one ended with a phone call sort of coming, the radio message coming to Jules. And we see the other side of it. We see what happened with Lucas Kyle and Patrick Kennedy. And two things can be right. They were shot at, and they also still lived. And so we see that Lucas Kyle has gotten a shot through the shoulder. It looks like it might be through and through. And Patrick Kennedy gets him to the doorstep of Silo 17, where we see all the kids and Jimmy there being that happy family. And they take them in and get Lucas all mended up and on the mend, while they then get that radio message that we heard at the end of the last episode, sort of stop Jules and them from blowing up the pipes and stuff in judicial. That we get the back end of that. We see the back end of that. And it's that point that Jules tells Jimmy, hey, I need you to uncover what's going on with your mom. Like, whatever that was, I need you to dig in a little bit more and get some more information on that, because something that's going to help us figure out what the hell we need to do. Camille meets with the voice, and the voice tasks her with finding out exactly what it is that Jules was trying to do, because there's a true reason for Kennedy and Kyle going over to 17, and we need to find that out, because what we thought was handled is no longer handled. We can't visibly see their bodies, so whatever you got to do, now's the time to make that move and figure it out, because time's of the essence. And so Camille goes to Robert in his cell, because she has him in prison now in judicial, to give him food, but more to sort of see if she can get information. She tries to play the family card, and she tries to play this nice, cool, like, hey, I'm just worried about when our kid's going to start losing his memory, and using that as a way to sort of get in to then backdoor conversation of like, hey, you got any idea about what Jules is playing? And Robert is onto it. Robert stonewalls like, nah, I'm not giving you that information. And you can tell she just leaves kind of upset, but like, okay, cool. This is the game you want to play. Say less. Say less. So then we have the big piece of the Knox Billings Hank story, and the sort of closing out of a piece of Orla Kent's story. So Knox goes to his dad, finds him. He's located his father, and it's a very pleasant meeting. The two of them have not at all. But Knox wants to know what it is that he and Harwood had in common and what they did together to sort of be able to steal supplies. Like supplies are going missing, and his dad just throws him off, shoots him off like, "Nah, I'm not giving you anything," and then Knox punches him in the face for his troubles. Great family dynamic they have there. But then Knox goes to get Hank and Billings and say, "Hey, I got my father. I found him. Let's have a conversation with him." And he's a lot more willing to talk when he realizes that Orla Kent's death has sort of become because of whatever it is that he and Harwood did. And so he draws up a mock of what it is that he gave Harwood to sort of be able to do what it is that he's doing. The only thing that he asks is like, "Don't put me in this. When any of this stink comes back on Harwood, I don't want to be a part of it." And Billy's like, "Look, I don't care. As long as you didn't kill Orla Kent, I don't care what it is that you gave him or did for him. Just give me that information." They take it back and they learn that basically Orla became aware of how it is, like the actual specifics of how this sort of big scheme that was happening on in the background, how it was going down. She became aware of it, and someone had to shut her up. So she wasn't really trying to tell anybody. She's just like, "Oh crap, I know what's going on," and she wound up telling the wrong person that she was on to it, and thus ended up dead because of it. She didn't know what scheme she was stopping. She just knew that something was occurring. So then Harwood gets a signal that the way that he has been doing this all this time is being in use. And so he goes quickly to see what Knox's dad is, who he's presumes to be coming up this lift that has been created that he drew. And on coming up the lift is Hanks, Billings, and Knox, having them dead to rights. At that point, the Harwood's like, "Look, this is how I guess you're onto the scheme. You figured it out. This is how I've been doing stuff. But I can tell you and I can promise you that me nor my daughter killed this woman. We had nothing to do with it." Um, and it's at that point that Billings is like, "Well, I don't doubt that now that you know they're dead to rights because we would have to go out to clean. They're threatening like we'll put you out in the hill cleaning. Like that's what we're going to do. But you do know who did kill Orla." And that's when we realize it comes back to that it was her boyfriend slash Harwood's daughter's boyfriend, kind of a dual mole in Mike Davidson, which I feel like honestly is isn't worth the multiple episodes we spent on this story. Like I feel like the story is kind of a throwaway. It needed to happen. I do know why they did it. I think it'll sort of come back in on the back end of the episode, on the back end of the season. But I think getting there was rougher than it needed to be. I feel like Mike Davidson was kind of clearly the person at the very beginning, and it didn't surprise me at all. And it felt like a bit underwhelming to sort of get that reveal. I'm like, oh, yeah, of course it's the boyfriend. That tracks. Now, what I think is going to come in is like the creation of that lift is going to help them get away with doing some things later on in this season that may help them in the long run. So it's going to come back to work. The lift being that whole thing is being put there in a place to sort of show how people can get from one level to the other without the cameras being uh, catching on to them. That's why you put that in place. I just feel like there could have been an easier way or a better way to get there. Neither here nor there. We have it now. We know why it's there. We'll go on and carry on. So in 17, per Jules' request, Jimmy and Kennedy find a panel that was welded shut from the inside, with them still being on the outside. And so they cut a hole to cut the panel open to see what's on the other side. And they find a body that's in a cleaning suit, which is Jimmy's mom. And Kennedy's like, "Okay, we need to see the pipe. To get to the pipe, we need to move your mother out of the way." And Jimmy's like, "Nah, I don't want to do that." He doesn't want to have that conversation right now. So he scurries off. Kennedy's like, "Cool, can one of you other folks help me move this body?" And they're like, "Nah, we're not going to do that." And they're kind of coming together as a family to threaten Kennedy, like, "No, if Jimmy doesn't want this body ain't being moved." So Kennedy has to do what he can to get Jimmy out. Kennedy goes to Kyle and like, "Kyle, can you help me? Can you help me move this body or help me to get Jimmy to move it? Like we need to do this because we need to get to that pipe to figure it out." And Kyle's like, "I'm in no shape to move anybody. Unfortunately, you gotta find Jimmy to get this done the correct way." So the younger person in 17, she helps Kennedy find Jimmy, and he eventually talks Jimmy into it more so to honor his mother, and so they move her And then they find the pipe. The pipe has a cut in it, so there's a chunk out of it missing. That was done with a bandsaw, and then it's welded shut, like caps of it are done, but it's not complete. And so what they learned is that Jimmy's mom was running out of fuel to weld everything, and so instead of being able to not having enough to weld the rest of the pipes to get it all kind of shut down, she welded herself inside, keeping the gas inside so that she took the brunt of it and everything sort of stayed in there with her and nothing got out to the rest of the Silo 17. So while Jimmy's father saved Jimmy specifically by putting him in the IT room and locking him away, she saved the silo as a whole. And so the safeguard didn't work here because they kind of capped it in that way. That message gets back to Jules and Shirley to say, hey, this is what you need to do. This is where the pipe is. Go forth and go with God. So Jules and them devise a plan to pinch the pipe. Um, will pinch the pipe, cap the pipe, and then weld it. Basically, do a trifecta on it so that it's triple redundancy, so that that gas never gets out. So Shirley's en route to the panel where she's going to do all this capping and whatnot. But then Jules, while talking to Bernard, remembers that something about Silo 17 and the way that it was positioned and the cameras, that she's sending Shirley to the wrong panel, and the panel is just slightly to the right, just a little bit more. So she kind of goes to go meet Shirley to go tell her, hey, you're going to the wrong panel. But before she does that, she does have a convo. It's kind of important. It's a little bit weighty, where she has a conversation with Jules to discuss the connection of the silos and how they're all sort of, instead of connecting them all together with several, like 50 different pipes going along, they have 7 main pipes going out, and that's how they connect it and send the gas through one silo one, and then it kind of differs out to all the other ones. And so Jules is kind of questioning, like, well, why would the creator of all of this create a poison to just wipe out one entire silo? Like, why? What would be the need of that? Which we can tell that we did not get the answer for that in this particular episode with the Daniel and Helen stuff. They don't know that, but the plan is to be able to cap the pipes, so removing the control that the safeguard would have, so that then they can take some of that control on and make a decision for themselves. So that is the goal of what they're trying to do. What is a bit of a heartfelt moment is that Bernard it tells Jules of what he had to do to poison his good friend, somebody he cared about, somebody he loved, in Mary Meadows, because IT told him it was the thing to do, it was the right thing to do to save the silo, which was a lie. It was not the case, and he knows that now, but he did it. And so everything that he's doing now is to try to sort of make amends for that, knowing that he can't make up for that, but doing everything he can to sort of change the trajectory of what it is that they were doing. And in that moment, Jules is like, that's some rough stuff you just told me, and I should hate you. And I'm mad at myself because I don't. Like, I don't hate you, because she just sees him as being a puppet. Like, you are no more in control than I am in control of what we're doing. So you were just playing the game, and this is the game, the cards you were dealt. So Camille meets back up with IT, and IT's a little bit red, meaning that they're a little bit upset, and they're just like, did Robert give you anything? She's, nope, he gave me nothing. And so at that point, she's like, well, I need to know what the plan is or what happens when you safeguard, because I can't know what information that I need to get from Jules or anybody if I don't know how it is that one could stop the safeguard. And they're not giving her that information. This was like, she says, kill us all, because she's basically like, I can't help you with one hand tied behind my back. So Jules makes her way to Shirley and clocks her pregnancy, because her dad used to deliver babies all the way. So she knows how women walk when they are with child. She just clocks in like, hey, why didn't you tell me? And Shirley's like, I didn't tell you because you would stop me from doing this type of stuff. She's like, no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm here to stop you because the panel that I sent you to was the wrong panel. We need to go to a different panel. So on their way to making that panel, she gets a message from Sandy, who's like, hey, I'm asking if you're going to have Ralph Melby weld. And she's like, no, I'm going to have Shirley do it. It's like, okay, cool. And then they hang up. After a few steps, now mind you, Sandy gets arrested. Like, so that was a setup to sort of figure out where Jules was going and what Jules was doing. That triggers a memory for Jules that she had a previous conversation back before she even went out to clean with Sandy about Ralph Melby. That, like, crap, they're about to arrest me. They're on to me. We can no longer do this as a duo. Shirley, you have to do this by yourself. Like, you have to go continue on with the mission. You keep going, do it. But they're coming to get me. So I'm going to just go get myself up. Please don't stop this. Shirley runs off to go talk to Knox and Martha while Jules is arrested and then put in the same cell that Robert is put into in judicial. And she's like, look, you made your bed, Robert. So tough. And closes the cell on the two of them together. And then Shirley gets down to Bernard and Knox and Martha and says, they got Jules. They got her dead to rights. We can't do anything because she's in judicial. So I can't cap that place because it could blow with her in there. And Bernard's like, look, Jules knows what this is. She would not want us to stop. She would want us to keep going. And Martha says the coldest line, look, I would rather die than forget who Jules is. So like, we doing this because I'm not forgetting that girl. Like, I don't want to live in a shell of my body where I forget who that is. And that is how their episode and how the episode ends. Funny, Kyle and Kennedy are still at 17. So I think a piece of whatever helps 18 is getting those kids, bow and arrow and all, back to 18. But I think the biggest piece of this, they're going to continue on with trying to blow up the pipe and then cap it. The biggest piece of this, though, is that lift. That is going to be what kind of gets them a leg up on the silo, folks, because that's an unknown entity to the IT. It's not on any radar. Nobody can clock it because it's been so underground. But now that it's a bit out, the only people that know it are Billings, Hanks, Harwood, and Knox. And so it could become a useful tool for them as they go along. But for me, I think the most harrowing thing about this episode to see how fast and loose a billionaire, trillionaire, however billionaire heir he has, how much money he has, how he can play so callous with lives that he has never touched or has never been around or has never smelled. It's a art imitating life piece of like, oh, how people can make decisions for others without ever having the idea of what that actual life would look like. It's scary. It's a frightening piece. What did you guys think about episode 8 called Grey Goo? Go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on X at hollywoodadi. You can hit us up on email at hollywoodalreadydid@gmail.com. We also have a podcast by the same name. That's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.